The Taken King has arrived, and the first thing he took was the game we got used to in Year 1, as Destiny has been almost completely overhauled by Update 2.0. Good evening, and welcome to the second Dragons Anime video review. This time we're taking a look at Destiny Year 2. I'm JC, and I'm here today with guests JDeems.
Hello.
And GarthVanderson.
Pronounce the last name right.
Thanks for joining me today, guys. So, we never actually took a look at Destiny in Year 1 for the Dragons Anime reviews. So as we play here, I'm going to touch on a couple of the major changes and just what our thoughts are overall. We've been playing for about 2 weeks here. And I think the first thing I'll start with is the fact that with Year 2, the focus of the writing has very much changed. It's now very much story first, instead of where it used to be last year, more action first and story as an afterthought. Guys?
I agree. I think they've done a lot better with the writing. They've implemented a lot better story, and the comedy is now a big part of it as well, which they had talked about doing. Deej had wanted to do that.
And they have done that, really. I mean, when you think about it. However, the replacement of Dinklebot with what we call him now, Nolanbot.
Yeah.
Did help.
It does feel like a new start for the story, especially considering that as part of the Year 2's update, you end up playing through all the original missions again to get them cleared out of your quest screen.
Yeah, because with the new bot, it does freshen it up a good bit to a point.
Even though there are certain things we like to hear Dinklebot say.
Well,
yeah. A little bit better.
There are those few token lines that are always going to be missed, but...
So one of the things that I noticed right away when I started playing is that there are now some scripted sequences built directly into the game. For instance, on the very first level, as you're going through the base on Phobos, you see an elevator collapse partway down the shaft, and then shortly thereafter you see a Legionnaire from the Cabal fall down. He's scrambling, trying to get back out, but he can't. And that's something you never saw. Yep. That's something you never saw in Year 1.
Well, they had said they went from, I believe it was 50 up to now 500 in the development
team
department. Yeah, the dev team, they significantly increased in that. I mean, really raised it up.
And it does show, because there are definitely some big changes as far as just their basic storytelling ability with what they can show in the game compared to last year.
Get clear.
So,
now, I was gonna say, even with like this strike here, even the mechanics have changed
substantially. There actually are mechanics now versus Year 1, where the vast majority of the time it was reach a section, clear waves.
Yeah, running gun. Now it's actually do things.
Like on this strike, we have to carry these orbs of arc energy forward to open up a shield. And you're still fighting a lot of enemies, as you can see, but at least it's something other than stand around, wait for the bot to finish, and then realize that he's never going to finish until you've cleared all the enemies. There's a little bit of thought in it now. Something else you hear, and you've occasionally heard Ikora speak up during this mission, is that there's a lot more running commentary during the mission from the various Vanguard representatives, Eris and Cade and Ikora. The characters actually have personality now, which is something I'll touch on in a little bit here.
Yeah, and it's a good thing, I feel. Get off of me.
And just so you know, folks, we are playing this live, as you can tell. So don't mind us if we get quiet for a moment here every so often.
Yeah, I tend to concentrate.
So on that same topic and having personality, I have one word for you folks. Cade.
I second that. The new man of the game.
Yes,
More
you
than
have
any
the
other.
Titan, who is just a crusty old geezer person. You have the woman who's more interested in protecting the city, and Cade, who really doesn't care.
He just wants to get out of the tower, as he says many a times.
And this is all tied back to what little backstory we had for these characters in the first year. But the difference is now the characters all actually have a personality. Zavala is he's the Titan. He's more or less the lead general. At least that's the way he's presented. He's more interested in the rules and regulations and making sure everybody's taken care of, making sure the defense is covered properly. Then you have Ikora, the lead of the Warlock class, who very wise character, and that's how she's played off. But if you listen to some of her lines, you realize she's just a bit bloodthirsty at times. Very much a zealot character. You have Eris,
I agree.
You have Eris, who joined us in the second expansion pack last year, and she was in some ways the first beta test of the newer style of writing, where she actually had a little bit of personality out the gate, even though there wasn't a whole lot of story added in that expansion pack. But she had a little bit of personality. She did talk a little bit while you're in there, and she was more than just there to hand out quests. And then you have Cade. Cade, who takes probably the role as the primary attached, primary storyteller in the Taken King, because it's Cade who sits there and like JDeems said, he kind of acts as though he's not all that interested. But if you look at what he really did, he got the story moving. He got the attack on the Dreadnought going. He's the one who drove you through the entire storyline. If it hadn't been for his interference or actions, depending on how you want to call it, we never would have gotten on to the Dreadnought. Zavala and Ikora would have been too busy chatting back and forth, trying to figure out what to do. Which brings me to my last point, which is the writers are just plain having fun with the characters and the world.
And it's about time they did. It's making it better for us and the game in general.
It really is.
Caught this attempt at abusing the timeline. But how many have there been?
So we've talked about the characters, and that kind of dovetails into the next topic, which is content. The main story is easily as long as the original Destiny, with one exception, the fact that there actually is a story. Whereas in year one, there's some lore scattered through the missions that you do, but a lot of missions do not feel interconnected. They really don't feel as though they have too much to relate them, other than you're just moving through the 4 planets, doing stuff, and going back to the tower, and there's no real change in the world because of it. Guys?
With the story now,
and the restorative mind.
I agree. There's purpose. It's just not do this, do that, do this, do that. With the story, with the writing, everything's came together, and it's, in a way, it is a whole new game.
Which is basically what they promised us.
Yeah. I mean,
Just lit up.
a lot of people feel year one was a beta. I agree. Year one was straight up nothing but a beta. And honestly, it worked out for the best because Destiny is really, really enjoyable now.
Um, I think overall the main story is definitely better because, again, they actually had a chance to write a story. You know, I
Yes.
was reading, I've read here and there that with the whole Martin O'Donnell leaving Bungie very abruptly, a big part of his reason for that was because of interference from the publisher Activision. And Activision, I think, is turning out more and more to be kind of a villain because if you listen to some of what he said, some of what came out in actual court as related to his case, some of the problems in this game, it's simply that Activision came in and they said, well, we're going to do it completely different, and this was at the last possible minute. They changed the story almost completely right before release, and so you ended up with almost no story at release.
Yeah. It was everyone was saying that Activision said, "Well, take this out, take this out." That Activision was just going to be about the money and the DLC.
I'm turning down my
And
audio, folks, because that strike's getting just a little loud, so you can actually hear the review, folks. You were saying, Jay?
sorry, I was concentrating on getting that and not dying.
I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just
Oh no, I actually forget my train of thought on that one.
Activision we were talking about and the changes they
Oh
made.
yeah, and in a way, it's everyone is trying to blame it on them. I think a lot of people was using it as a scapegoat. I think it was the fact that they didn't have a good dev team at the time. They were short on everything. Like I said, it went from 50 to 500, and they're planning from
Developers,
the
yeah.
way, the way that Deej has been talking and a few of the other guys. There's going to be more. They're talking of possibly hitting 2,000 on it, and if it could do that, we would definitely be getting some excellent content.
And you do start to see that this year. You have seen that. The quest system, let's talk about briefly. So in year one, everything was done either you're just doing the mission and what you're doing is part of the mission, that's it. Or you got bounties where you kill 50 enemies or pick up 50 what's-its or, going through and picking up stuff like that. Now, the new expansion pack has an actual quest system, which I'm going to show you real briefly here, where it shows you where you are in things, steps you have to complete, the reward, gives you a little bit of lore about that quest. So
I
instead of
really,
it
I really
being
enjoy that.
instead of it being passive, there's a much more active role in what you're doing built into that system. And then the other thing about this story that we definitely did not see in year one is that after the end of the previous story mission editions, that was it. There was nothing else. When you finished the main storyline, there was no follow-up. There was no epilogue whatsoever. In Taken King, killing the Taken King as part of the story mission only unlocked about 15 to 20 more missions.
Yeah, I mean, just the main story itself was just a beginning. That was a small part.
Mm-hmm. Let's see here. Our patrol tasks. So there are several open areas where you can just drop down and just do stuff in general. Run around, kill enemies, And there are patrol tasks that you can do to gain extra experience, gain trade skill materials. They've added a much bigger variety of tasks, but I think they did maybe make some of these tasks a little bit too difficult, and that's going to kind of dovetail with another issue that I have overall with what I've seen, which we'll get to in just a minute here. How are you guys liking the new tasks in the game?
I enjoy it all. It's more to do. It's some people's going to say, well, it's more grinding and this and that. At the same time, it's not just grinding. You can go do this, you can go do that. There's so much to do that even just leading up to get to the raid, we haven't even touched the raid yet.
Yeah.
There's so much.
There's so much you can do in the game right now. I'm currently not talking because I'm currently got a phone call, so excuse me on that. But I'll be back here in a few.
No worries. Let's talk about the Dreadnought briefly for a little bit here. The Dreadnought is the new patrol area, and unlike some of the older areas, the Dreadnought is basically one ongoing war between the Taken and the Hive and the Cabal, who have crash landed onto that ship as well. And there are wide open arenas where there are major battles going down non-stop. And you're basically in there getting in between the two of them. And then there are also longer sections where you're running around in tight corridors. It's a maze. There's treasures to be discovered. There's secrets to be found. You're going to see some of the Dreadnought as we go into this mission, in fact. And it's a very impressive level design, but it really highlights, I think, the need that Destiny has, which is there needs to be some sort of mini-map, because the amount of time you spend backtracking back and forth in the Dreadnought is time I think could be spent better if they gave you even just a basic mini-map just to help keep your bearings a little bit better.
The one big issue is the lack of Sparrow usage. That's why I feel like you're saying with the mini-map. Yeah, we need it on other boards, but with the Dreadnought, you don't have any type of fast travel. You're all on foot, and with as massive as it is, the tight corridors, you can get turned around very easily if you're not used to it.
Or if you get into a pitched battle.
Yeah, because if you're in a battle and you've got to hightail it, you're going to get turned around sometimes.
And unfortunately, that's a bit of a distraction, I think, into the level. That happens in the best of games, but in a game as large as Destiny wants to be, I don't think there's really an excuse for not some sort of mini-map built into the easy-to-find UI, other than like the little radar I have on the upper left, which is helpful in and of itself, sure, but it's not a map. It's not a mini-map where you can get a quick tactical overview of the area. And that's
something that from the congregation.
Yeah, it's not saying you're in this section, you're in that section. It's just showing your general area.
Right. Barring that, I would also like to see a real map added to the pause menu where, I'm trading my time viewing enemies and being able to react to them in the areas around me, but at least I can still get my bearings overall. It doesn't make sense to me that we have maps of these sections when we're going to a level, but with all the technology that we're supposed to be carrying with us as a Guardian, we don't have the same capability to put something up on our HUD in mission.
Why would you bring a tank to space?
Yeah, simple, just pause. Really, even You know, they even add a tab into the pause menu. It's not then it's obviously not hard to add yet another tab into the pause menu.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, they'll do that, and it'll be another 16 point something gig download. But
well, yeah, that's the price we pay for our games, I suppose.
yeah,
I would gladly do another 16 gig download if I could have a mini map.
Yeah, because that really is, I think, a necessary addition that's just missing from Destiny right now. And it's a problem that's only going to get worse as time goes by and the game gets bigger and bigger. This is supposedly a 10-year game, folks. They're going to keep releasing patches and updates and expansions for the next 9 years still.
And I don't want to go.
A whole brand new game will be coming out. What are you talking about? There'll be a brand new disc and everything.
And going 9 years without a mini map is not a good thing.
Not gonna cut it.
Let's see here. Let's talk about visual clutter, and you've just met some of the Taken right before we faced this tank. A lot of enemies in this game are fast movers. They duck and dodge and weave around and generally be annoying, but you'll see, especially if we get back into see more Scions, for instance, taking Scions, taking Captains. The Taken enemies, while they are somewhat interesting overall, have a lot of visual clutter that makes it hard to aim, hard to tell what you're aiming at, and because they're all outlined in light blue but black bodies, it makes it really hard to track what you're doing with them, especially if you're facing a big pack of them. Add to that the explosions, the incoming fire, and I think that some of the difficulty of the the Taken is just based on the amount of visual clutter that they put on the screen at any given time. See, look at this.
Yeah, this battle right here is gives you a little bit of
and this is a pretty mild example. I mean, we've only got 8 or 9 Taken here. So that's, your mileage may vary on that, but that can be a bit annoying. I think, especially with the faster enemies that like to duck and dodge around, where it's already hard enough to shoot them.
And the worst of all, the Captains.
The Captains. The Captains,
so Bungie,
I don't think.
If you would happen to watch this, Bungie, nerf the Darkness Ball.
Yeah. I don't remember if there are any
to shoot it and kill it.
Yes, that would be another option. Just like the ball that the Centurions throw at you. I don't believe we're going to see any Captains in this mission. But basically, the Taken Captains have this ability to throw a enormous orb of darkness, and I mean bigger than the 3 of us standing side by side.
And
it's wider than all 3 of us.
Objects.
Mm-hmm. What I found is that unless it's within about a quarter diameter of its center point, it will go right through walls. And when it hits you, it blanks your screen out. And it's blank for a good 5 to 10 seconds. And that in and of itself, I don't have a problem with. It's the fact that the Captains tend to spam them. They throw one every 2 seconds. And there are frequently 5, 6, 7, 10 Captains, or the other ones that, there are a couple enemies that all have the same attack, all that are Taken fallen. And you hear nothing but this one attack going off from every direction. You cannot put your head around the corner to actually shoot at anything, because if you do, you're blind. And that makes certain sections absolutely ridiculous. And one of us forgot to say coins.
Coins! Oh, wait a minute. You sure you want to turn it on with both of them, or you just want to turn it on with one of them?
I think they made it to where it's only going once both are dead. I believe. Yeah. I'll check on this because I believe I have one on already. It's just not safe.
You're standing there with all kinds
I'm
of
getting chased.
Yeah. Alright, I'm working on Scions over here.
So,
I'll clear.
Oh, yeah.
The strike remixes will probably... Yeah. Scions have this wonderful ability where they throw a wave of arc energy at you from across the room. And they have a nasty habit of doing it just at the right moment every single time to screw you over. But that's old enemies, and we've gotten used to it. And to a degree, some of our problems with the Taken are going to go away as we get used to them, too. But some things really do need to change. Taken Scions have a tendency to split, as in literally they will divide in half. And the problem with that is that they tend to divide right as you kill them. So you have to turn around and kill yet another Scion, which then splits as you kill it.
And even if they have minimal health, when they split, they have full health.
Right.
Yep.
One of them does. I will give them credit on that.
Yeah.
And this is stuff that could easily be resolved just by giving them a limit number of times that they could split. What you sometimes see happening, though, is if 3 or 4 Scions spawn in, but you're busy with other enemies, you turn around and you got 20, 30 Scions there. And that's a little bit ridiculous. That's just pointless difficulty. And that's something that I've had a problem with Destiny, is that a lot of the difficulty in this game tends to be of the throw more ads at it variety. There, got a coin used. Instead of actually creating interesting mechanics, like you see these two brothers who are jumping at us and throwing us all around, and the other one there has a shield you have to go inside of to actually damage him. Instead of interesting mechanics like that, a lot of the difficulty when you're fighting bosses is simply the fact that you're getting spammed with enemies. So many enemies.
Anyways.
Oh, can they stay together for a minute?
Nice.
Oh!
Yeah,
that's
it'd be
not
nice
good.
If I didn't blow up myself.
I didn't blow myself up. He just said no and died. Incoming.
Yep. Okay, it's time for you to die now.
I definitely agree.
Yeah. Anyway, as you can see,
out of that corner. This is not good.
Oh,
as we go through here, you're likely to see some of the new Strike remixes.
One
of them is down. Might even see one next to stage.
Now make sure
and reinforces out the ass.
Check your coins.
Well, in the second one, get these idiots off of me. Nope,
and you can die.
Alright. Now that we're not getting shot at, I was going to talk about the Strike remixes briefly. And we might even see one next round here. They've taken some of the year one strikes that were enjoyable in and of themselves, and they've remixed them with new Taken enemies. But that's not all they did, and I think they actually did something really intelligent there. Now, instead of it being the same strike every single time, you have a chance to face one set of enemies here, another set of enemies there, the entire strike can be completely different. The entire strike, but one section can be same as it used to be. And that's actually interesting to play because you're never 100% certain what to expect as you go through the door and move on to the next area. That's added
Yeah.
some good replayability that Destiny really needed in some of its strikes and missions. He paused, waiting for somebody to.
Oh, with the changing up of everything, I think it's great because you could be going through and used to fighting Cabal, and next thing you know, there's Taken, and you get up to the next spot, there could be Vex. You could have Cyclops. You could have. It's just so different every time, and it's like you said, part of the strike. Everything could be almost the same until you get to one room. It's different. The entire thing could be different. And if you play it again, right after each other, it's not going to be the same. It's always going to be different. Like
And
here,
this,
we will get to
yeah,
see this one.
this strike is a perfect example. This is one of the remixed strikes. Where this came out in year 2, it was part of the Dark Below expansion. And
PlayStation exclusive.
PlayStation exclusive, correct. And it's now available for everybody in year 2, but they've changed it so that there is some variety in this strike. You're still taking the same path, but for instance, we have these mines floating here in the air, and we're getting taken enemies. Those obviously were not in there in the Dark Below expansion.
We have, and there's also regular Vex in the back as well.
Mm-hmm. So, and that's what it is.
Here's also another new thing. I'm going to deploy the patrol beacon.
Yep.
And we now have a turret.
Which is
let's also talk a little bit about the fact that if we've been around where the enemies have moved on each other. There is instances, in one of the famous key farming spots there in the Cosmodrome, I've ran into the Fallen taking on the Hive and the Taken all at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that is what you call a cluster.
Now, the
Definitely.
problem with that, and it's great, that's great to see, but here's the problem with that introduces. They're taking on all three in a three-way clusterfuck, but the moment you arrive, they all attack you. Every single one of them will turn directly on you. Enemies that were fighting each other, for instance, these goblins, these Taken goblins have an ability to shield. They will start shielding the enemy they were just attacking. And they all turn on you to attack you. That's something that needs to change. If they're going to have that mechanic in the game, they need to keep fighting each other. And if one or two of them wants to shoot at you too, they need to not ignore the enemy they were fighting just to turn on you. That gets a little bit heavy when they do that.
Yeah. Okay, everything's out of view. I'm going to come over and help on that. All right. And another thing.
Here you can see the Taken Scions, and as I'm sitting here killing them, they're respawning at the same time. All right.
And you gotta love the hobgoblins, like triple.
Yes.
What would you call that? Like a Nova Bomb automatic
it's a
defense?
it's a seeking Nova Bomb. In the original game, there were these hobgoblin enemies where they had a interesting ability. When you shot them, they would deploy a immunity shield for X number of seconds. The Taken version do not have an immunity shield. And the Taken version don't have an immunity shield. They just bomb you like crazy automatically if you attack them. they throw in pretty heavy Nova Bomb attacks that strike at you from very long ranges and hit pretty hard, and they are high-level homing. They don't just kind of curve after you like the obnoxious Fallen arc blasts.
And these are like supersonic.
Yes. So that
Let's
actually,
not even talk about the Cabal Shield Phalanx pricks either.
yeah,
Yes. We'll see them going up the hill, probably.
probably.
Oh, we'll see them somewhere in this mess.
Here, you're gonna be able to. There's a hobgoblin right there that I just shot.
Yeah. There.
See
There's
how
another
it
one.
ducks down and it has a shield, and during that time you cannot attack it. Now, you can actually use that to your advantage. If there are 3 or 4 of them attacking you, you can trigger their shields 1 or 2 at a time to give you a quick breather, enough time to reload, while only dodging 1 sniper bolt.
And now let's see what we get here.
Yep.
It's the normal spawn.
Yep. And this is an interesting normal spawn because this was easily the hardest strike of the Dark Below.
Oh, let's see.
Here's another thing that drives me nuts is when enemies all spawn apparently in front of you, but then 2 or 3 spawn right behind you with no warning.
Yes.
That tends to happen in this game, and it's more that false difficulty in my mind. It really is.
And I actually just got errored out of the game.
You're not the only one.
Which means I'm here alone. That does sometimes happen, unfortunately. So I'm just gonna.
I'm completely out, so
Okay.
I will rejoin as soon as I get here.
Yeah.
Same thing.
I'm still here holding our mission open, so bear with us, folks.
And I will say, since 2.0, it is a lot less frequent. They have done something to make it a lot better, because before the patch, you could get kicked 5, 6, 7 times
In a
couple
row.
hours.
Yep.
Yeah. And now this is my actual first time since the patch getting kicked out of the game.
Unlike the Rainbow Six Siege beta that came out here this week that nobody could seem to play.
Yeah, I heard about that.
While we're waiting here, why don't we talk some about the new subclasses, folks? How about our Emperor Warlock?
Mr. Palpatine is very kind.
Yes.
With the new Taken Below expansion, all 3 classes got new subclasses. Each class had two classes previously. One for, there are 3 different elements in the game, and we had 2 subclasses. So one class would be one element, the next class would be another element. With the Taken King, we've gotten our 3rd subclass, and that's the element that we didn't have. As a hunter, I have a Void subclass, for instance. And I think they did a pretty good job with the new subclasses. I've found the Hunter subclass to be very well balanced overall.
Honestly, I feel that out of all 3, it's not like the previous, where there were some OP classes. All 3 of the new classes, I feel, are very well, like, equally good in both PvP and PvE.
Right. I do think it's fair to say that it's clear that these new classes are overpowered currently compared to the old classes, and I fully expect that we'll be getting a nerf on all 3 subclasses in the near future. And I think the reason they did that is because they wanted you to play them and get used to them rather than just sticking with the old faithful classes you're used to. Not a bad plan, but it's going to cause some issues if I'm right and they end up nerfing them, a month down the line, 2 months down the line.
I have heard that what they were going to do is try to boost the other classes a little bit to bring them up to be as good as the new ones. They're not wanting to have to go back on what they have now.
Mm-hmm. And that would be a
Because,
pleasant surprise if they did, because so far Bungie has had a tendency to nerf rather than upgrade.
yeah, and they're taking more of the aspect of, well, this is working good, and if we were to nerf it, then it's not going to be anywhere near as effective and hurt the player. They're kind of looking out for us a little more.
Yeah, and that's nice to see. I'm not going to sit here and be like some people who would call Bungie on every single action they take as being for the worse, but they have had a bad habit of any time a change is made, it almost always affects the players negatively.
Yes.
Almost always.
And also, you can show now in the strikes the ammo crates that appear for everyone.
Mm-hmm. In the
which
vanilla,
is a great add-on. It saves
right?
synth.
It's in the vanilla Destiny, like the little box that I just opened didn't exist. Now they have them placed randomly, and it's not enough to be completely unbalancing, but it's enough to give you a quick boost when you might need it. Especially in sections that are bullet heavy like that onslaught of gold enemies that we just fought through. Let's talk about experience level versus light level. For those of you who don't know, Destiny is touted to be a shooter MMO, and it's not quite either in practice, but that's kind of how people tend to look at it. Okay, that's going to be fun. In vanilla Destiny, you had light levels on your armor. You got regular experience up to a certain point, which I believe was level 20 off the top of my head. And then after that, after that point, you had to equip armor with higher light level in order to continue to increase your power, which would take you up to 29 or 32 or 34, depending on the expansion you were on. And that sounds confusing, but it's relatively simple to get used to once you've seen it in action. This piece of armor, which is rare, gives you this amount of light for that piece of armor. That piece of armor, which is legendary, gives you more light. The next piece of armor, which is exotic, gives you even more light. And then there was raid gear, which gave you even more light. The higher the light, the higher your light level, the higher the enemy you can damage. In the new system, your level, you're still getting basic experience, and now it goes up to level 40. However, your light level is still there. Now, supposedly they were going to take out light levels or make it not important, and that's not what happened. Instead, your light level is still there, but instead of each piece having its own light level and that being it, now each piece has its light level, but your light level is based on an average of all the armor that you have equipped. So if you have 10 pieces at light level 10 and 1 piece at light level 1, you actually have an effective light level of 7 or 6 or whatever.
What they did was, I was going to say they went from the giant spike jump to where you had this level and then you went to a completely another level and it was a giant spike increase.
Right.
To where you now get the gradual increase, and going, say, from level 297 to 300 is actually very significant. Those 2 or 3 points really matter now.
Right. My problem with the whole practice of it, though, is that in and of itself is a little bit more confusing, but they still have the exact same problem that they had with the old system, which is your level and your light level have almost no relation to each other. As a level 40 character, I should be able to attack any enemy that's level 40 or 41 or even 42. I should be able to hit them. However, in practice, if an enemy is level 40 and has a higher light level than I am, I can't touch him. That's actually worse off than the previous game where at least, or the previous expansions where at least if an enemy was higher level than me, I could still do damage even though it was at a bit of a discount.
Significant
Yeah, it was a decrease of my overall power. They've made things more confusing, not less. Any other game, any other MMO like this that had endgame content like Destiny has, that just doesn't happen. Your level is your level. If you are that level and you can damage an enemy at that level, you can damage it. There's not this double gate of, well, here's your level, but here's what you're actually doing. And that is a problem Destiny still needs to solve, I think. I get what they're trying to do. I get that they're trying to make a bit of a unique mechanic, but they're kind of shooting themselves in the foot.
Yeah,
I think.
I agree. I agree with it. It can become very difficult to figure out. But there's always those ups and downs. I mean, it's all a work in progress, really.
It
With the
is.
next expansion, we'll probably see something new again.
Right, and that's the problem. It's a work in progress, and something as important as how you damage enemies cannot be a work in progress in a live game.
Exactly. It should be one set standard and continue with that set standard.
Let's talk about the Taken King's problem with the light number 240. This kind of dovetails with what we were talking about before. In year one, as I said, you had a pretty simple light level system, and once you were up to your level and you had all legendary armor, you could attack anything in the game. In year two, as a level 40 with all legendary armor, there is a 50-50 chance I will not be able to do half of the content yet, because even though I have all legendary gear, I don't have the light level to actually do content. For instance, we are doing content that has a light level of 240? Hence the whole problem.
240, yeah.
Before I hit that magic number of 240, actually it was about 230 when I could start damaging them at a penalty to damage. I couldn't even look at this content. I couldn't touch it. I couldn't do any damage. There was hardly any point to even considering it.
This better be a primary special. Oh my God.
That in and of itself isn't horrible, but because they completely revamped their difficulty system as part of this expansion, that means that anybody who did not buy the new expansion and does not have access to the higher light level gear has no ability whatsoever to play even old content. They removed a great deal of content for anybody who did not get the new expansion, just by virtue of making it impossible for them to damage the enemies.
Yeah.
And that, I think Destiny and Bungie are going to have to answer for at some point. I paid good money for this game. I've purchased each expansion as it came out. They should not have the ability to say, oh, by the way, you cannot play what you paid for anymore because we've released a new expansion. And I think we're going to see problems for Bungie coming up because of it.
And with that, it's like other games. Take Call of Duty. They have numerous DLC packs throughout the year whenever there's a Call of Duty game. That doesn't mean that you are still not able to play the base game and do everything else you've been used to doing.
Hmm?
It just means you're not able to participate in like the new maps or the new weapons, but you
Exactly.
can still play the game. With this, if you don't have it, you're kind of screwed.
You're playing a very, very minimal version of what you paid and were able to play right up until September 15th of this year.
E- Exactly.
A very minimal version of it. They've taken away the ability to do strikes that matter. They've taken away the ability to do nightfalls that
Which
have
is another
nothing to
story in
do.
its own right.
Yes. That have nothing to do whatsoever with the quest difficulty. And, some of us, we kind of saw this coming the way that they were raising the difficulty level of the Nightfalls with each expansion, but I don't think anybody realized they were going to go to this degree.
Yeah. I mean, it was unexpected with the way that it turned out.
They're using the witch to shield them this time.
I got him.
I got her.
This time I remembered to hover and then throw my grenade, not vice versa.
Garth, did you have any thoughts on that topic?
Well, I
I
could
think
say a lot of us has probably played, if you've ever watched this, probably World of Warcraft, stuff like that. It didn't stop you from playing just the vanilla World of Warcraft if you didn't get all the expansions. This, however, you can't do jack. You must buy the $80 version to play the whole game or else.
Yeah. And it's content that doesn't matter anymore whatsoever, which kind of dovetails with my next topic. Any MMO, I played EverQuest, you're talking about World of Warcraft. Any MMO in existence, the top tier gear from the highest end content in one expansion is always better than any group drop in the next expansion. It doesn't get superseded until the next expansion's raid.
yeah.
With Destiny, every single piece of gear, which they gave us the ability to raise up because people were complaining, and rightly so, every single piece of gear that I had from year one is now 100% useless. It does not have the light level to damage jack shit. If I equip it, I am lowering my own ability to do damage.
You drop yourself like 30 light levels.
Yes, at least.
Just
If you're using
by
all old gear, all old weapons, you're dropping substantially. This to me is also not acceptable. It's more acceptable than cutting off the better portion of the game for people who paid good money for the game. It's more acceptable than that, but it's still unacceptable overall.
And I do understand that they were wanting everyone to get away from the old weapons and use the new stuff. That's fine. But just to absolutely render it useless,
Yeah. There has to be a
not
difference.
smart.
There has to be a difference between that and forcing the player to start over from zero. If this is what they're going to do every expansion, I have no interest in paying for more expansions. Because I've put time, I've put effort into my character. I've put time and effort into doing the raids. I should not have to start from zero just because you released an expansion. So that's something that hopefully they're going to address, but I have a sneaking suspicion that in a year's time we're going to be very disappointed again. Let's see here. Gear in year 2 requires a great deal more experience to level up. So basically, folks, as you play the game, you get gear drops, and when you get them, they are not at full power. For instance, you can see here on my ghosts, I actually have an upgrade sitting and waiting for me. When you start, none of these circles are filled in, so you can't use any of these additional perks. As you fight, you get experience. The experience gets applied to your weaponry. This year, they at least added an ability to use a special item to add experience to everything just by burning it. It's a semi-rare item. Before this expansion, there was nothing like that. You had to level it up with quests, or you had to level it up just by going out into the world. But it takes at least twice as much experience, regardless of source, at least twice as much experience this year than it did last year.
That is armor only. Weapons, on the other hand, are so much easier to upgrade now. You can upgrade a weapon if you have, say, a primary weapon and a primary telemetry. If you use roughly 8 motes of light, which they have added that ability in, you can
Right,
have
and
a fully upgraded weapon.
Right, and that's the alternative. Mote of light is the alternative item I was mentioning, folks. But it's still, I think, a bit more experience than it used to be overall. It's just that it's easier. Yeah. If you disregard the motes of light completely, I think it still takes longer.
Disregarding the motes of light, yes.
Yes.
It will. And the armor is at least, I would say double what it used to be, time-wise and XP required.
And part of that is because they took away, as part of their changes, they took away a buff that you got from doing the Nightfall strike. What the Nightfall strike is once a week they would pick one strike and make it extremely difficult, almost raid level difficulty. And as part of completing that strike each week, you got a buff which doubled your experience gained. They've taken that buff away. And the net result is, like with a lot of stuff in this game, Destiny has become more grindy. You spend more time grinding for your engrams. You spend more time grinding for experience for those gear engrams. You spend more time looking for materials. It's a grind to get all this stuff done in-game. Same general topic, exotics. When they released the first expansion pack for Destiny, they forced us to re-level our exotic weapons and our exotic gear. What an exotic is, a special piece of gear. You can only wear one piece of it, one piece of armor, one piece of weaponry, but they have unique and powerful effects on them. For instance, the classic Gallahorn, which basically was the gun to have because it did ridiculous amounts of damage in year 1. When the first expansion came out, in order to get a version that was upgraded, you had to re-level it from 0. You had to completely start over on leveling it up. This year, we're doing the exact same thing. We now have year 2 versions of about a third of the exotics from year 1. Would you say that's roughly how many they carried over? So we're doing the exact same thing again. We're spending time doing shit we've already done. And Bungie is not learning from the lessons of the past. They keep making these same mistakes over and over. There was a big backlash when Dark Below came out because of this, and they're just not learning. They almost fixed it. That's what's really sad about it. When House of Wolves came out, there was a way to upgrade any weapon, any armor, to the max level just by getting a specific drop and applying it to it. That's it. You didn't have to reload it. You didn't have to re-level it up. It was just usable. That's now useless, and we don't have the ability to do it anymore. Bungie is not learning from the lessons of the past. Coins.
Beer.
Something else a lot of people complain about, and I'm kind of on the fence. I don't really care all that much because you do pick them up just as part of general play. But Bungie has way too many currencies in this game.
No, let's not talk about currency.
So we have Glimmer, which is your general gold. We have materials. We have special currencies that allow you to use your currency to spend currency. We have motes of light. We have all sorts.
I'll try.
I got him.
You got him?
I have cloak, fire. Remember?
Okay, well, I'm getting my ass shot, so you should be able to get him.
Getting back to what I was saying, did you spend a lot of time picking stuff up just so you can actually do things? It's more grinding, and every single expansion they've added one more currency type. They've added one more thing that you got to find or more to what's already out there. Year one, it was one material type for each planet. Year two, they added two more material they've added two more material types, plus everything else that came out in the expansions between. There's still too many currencies to deal with, and they need to stop adding more currencies, or at the very least, add some way to trade the old currencies directly into new ones.
Etheric light.
Just saying.
It's useless in the expansion.
It
They
is.
have not said what we're going to be able to use it for.
And
Etheric
unlike
light it's used to level up year one weapons
to a completely worthless light level.
To something that's not even good enough to use as a beginner level 40 when you start the game.
Let's see here. So, yeah, that's the gear changes.
Now there's a couple good things that came out of that though. The armor materials.
Yes,
they did at least they did do that. That is a bonus. That is a plus. Instead of 3.
Each class had its own armor material in year one. Hunters had fibers. Warlocks had
sapphire wires.
Yeah. Each class had its own armor material. In the new expansion, it's one armor material for all three classes, which means if you have one hunter, one warlock, one titan, you can share your stock between all three. That does make it take less space, at least.
Because vault space is precious.
Even after they doubled it.
Yes.
If you really want to talk about screwed up currency, you could go and see the early days of DC Universe Online. This is almost feeling the exact same way. They had currency to buy normal stuff, currency to buy gear, currency to buy gear for PvE, currency to buy legends.
See, and with the introduction of all the kiosks into the game now with 2.0 into Taken King, they could easily throw in a currency converter.
Yes.
Take your materials, and if you have this or that and you want to trade it in for something else, feel free.
Yes. Let's talk about difficulty changes, and we've touched on this already a bit. There's no viable difficulty levels for casual players. This is back to that whole 240 light problem that I was talking about. Every single hard, quote, hard mode event requires 240 light. In year one, every single event had multiple hard difficulties. You could adjust them based on your actual level. Now, you either have 240 light or nothing.
Yeah, or you can try to do it, but you're going to be pretty much useless.
Yeah.
You're going to be the little level 6 that ran around during the House of Wolves and the wolves were stirring, picking everybody up.
Yes, that's another thing I need to touch on. Destiny in year one has these open zones that make for good experience. And then, starting with the Dark Below, they started adding new public events to these sections. Now, bear in mind, folks, these are experience leveling places for players who haven't gotten to the point where they get legendary drops that have light level. And they are now spawning in high level enemies into these places.
Oh, 260s, I believe, is the drop on those.
Yeah, they're spawning high level stuff into these places where supposedly you need to be able to walk through at the very least to get to where you're going, or else fight in order to get your experience just to get up to level 40. Guess what? Doesn't work so great. As a level 6, you're walking in and you're killing stuff merrily, and all of a sudden you're getting your butt stomped on by a level 40 and 240 or 260 or 270 light level enemy. I don't like it when games do that, because it's unfair to the people who are late to the party. It doesn't bother me because I've been playing the high-end games since the game came out. But they just got a whole bunch of new players.
Yeah, and it's not even those. It's, say, we delete a character, we want to start a new character.
That's another good example.
We have to go grind these areas, and you're trying to grind as a level 10 in this area where everything's going to look at you and you die without, you don't even have to walk by them.
Yeah. And at least in House of Wolves, for the most part, those enemies stayed in a relatively confined area. In Taken King, it's the entire zone. It's the entire zone where these enemies are spawning. The daily story mission. So,
yeah, you might as well call it that.
Basically, in year one, the Nightfall was difficult, to say the very least. Year two, the daily heroic mission, which is supposed to be fairly simple comparatively.
Oh, this is not
We
normal.
got our butts kicked the first time we tried one, with levels above what the recommended light levels were. Now, part of that was just the mission, which is a bitch and a half even in regular gameplay. But, again, there's just this history of them turning that difficulty dial up a little too high, and most of it is based off of too many ads in the area. I'm sorry, but it really is. They've spent most of the difficulty that I see is just waves and waves and waves of ads. Look at this. Already. We're on a third wave of ads. Oh, good. Here's
the
captains.
wonderful captains.
And there is their ability.
I got hit by 2 of them.
Yeah, I immediately got rid of them.
Yeah, good man.
So,
like this.
I'll do. Let me do it. I've never done it.
Okay.
Nice. Boom. Bungie really has a problem with using ads for difficulty. And they really need to do something about it. Because while a lot of the changes they've made this year are good, and we are starting to see some mechanics being used versus just adds, they've got a long ways to go.
It's improving, but it can get better.
Yes. Let's see here. Heroic strikes, now with more random. Well, we kind of touched on this earlier, how when we were talking about the way they have remixed these heroic strikes. Heroics are also more difficult, just like the heroic daily mission, but it's what we're doing right now, only with more dangerous enemies. Just like what we're doing right now, sometimes you get taken, sometimes you get regulars, sometimes you get a mix of both. And that, again, I am actually rather happy about, because it adds a nice element of replayability. It's not the same every single time. There's always one straggler.
Well, as always, yeah.
Let's talk about that. There's your blind, folks.
And it's not just the fact of that; it's the insane teleport. The insane teleport as well of that captain. They
yes,
have multiple.
And that was true even of basic captains. They've always had an insane ability to teleport back and forth. They just warp all around on you. Let's talk about bullet sponge bullshit.
Golgoroth.
Golgoroth is one example. Yeah, a lot of enemies. This is the other half of the coins to having too many ads on screen. When there aren't too many ads on screen, it tends to be high HP enemies that just soak and soak and soak and soak and soak and soak and soak ammo. They just sit there and take everything you throw at them without taking much damage overall. Now that is changing somewhat. Let's talk about the War Priest. Have you two seen the War Priest fight?
Yes, sir. War Priest is not difficult.
No, it's not. But it's a very well done mechanic. War Priest is the first fight of the raid, of the new expansion raid. And basically,
a great team mechanic.
Yes, it's a great team mechanic. You have 3 points to defend on a 6-person fire team. You have 3 points to handle. And you have each phase cycle that's done, you have to do at least 25% of the enemy's health. You have to be on your game. But what's nice about it is it's actually really well done, where you actually have the time to do it as long as you're paying attention, not screwing around. Versus Golgoroth, who is the second fight of the new raid, and his main mechanic seems to be he has obscene amounts of health and nothing else.
Bullets. His job is eat everything.
Yeah. And that is not an improvement, I think.
I'm going down.
I'll get you here in a second once we get him out of there.
He's on the R, so watch.
Get off the ground. Watch it. The hole's opening.
Oh, shit.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and I just ran out of primary.
Yeah. As we try to avoid getting our butts kicked here.
We will.
Yeah, we got it.
Yeah.
He's dropping now.
So, as long as we're talking about the raid and the difficulty, the next thing I have on my list here is mid-game content and end-game content. What we're playing right now is what you would call mid-game content. It's level 36 strikes. The enemies aren't horribly difficult, but it is challenging. And this kind of gets back to the same thing. everything in Taken King is a big step up from from House of Wolves, which is the previous expansion, to even the early Taken King missions. The difficulty has been amped up. Not a small step either.
Nope.
No.
Oh, no.
You're building on skills that you built in year one, but they definitely amped up the difficulty, and I'm happy about that on one hand, but on the other hand, I'm not a huge fan of gating off content behind difficulty.
Yeah.
Now, that may sound strange when I tell you that I'm all for raids, which are by nature difficult. But there's a difference.
Yeah, they're designed to be that way.
Yes, they're designed to be that way, but in most games that I've played, there's not a gate to get into the raid just because of difficulty. You can work your way past with practice. Versus Taken King's difficulty is that more synthetic, lots of ads, lots of bullet sponges. That's what's coming in there, and it's kind of cheap tactics. That's the Taken mobs to me are iteratively annoying. They're not revolutionary. They're not evolutionary. They're taking the same annoying tactics they had as regular enemies and making it worse. Captains.
And to touch on what you're saying with the whole cutting off, being able to do certain, like the level and everything, to put into perspective, it's like how Destiny LFG, the site where you could get in and find people to be able to play the game with if you didn't have any friends on or you needed to do things. Destiny almost took a page out of their book where LFG turned into where you couldn't do anything unless you had a Gallahorn in year one. No one would add you in to do this or that unless you had a Gallahorn. Right now, with this, Bungie's saying, well, you can't do this unless you have this.
Yeah.
So in a way, they went in doing what they didn't want to happen, but they're doing it themselves.
Right. And that's very, very true. At least on Destiny LFG, which is, for those of you who are not familiar, it's a fan-built site for something that is missing from Destiny still in year two. There is no... For a game that's supposed to be built on social experience and having fire teams to do a great deal of content, there's no ability built into the game to actually get a group. You have to have people that you already know from outside of game, or just pick them up at random, or go to these fan-built sites that are not maintained by Bungie. There's no access to them from within the game. That's how you meet people, basically. Or you do random match-made strikes, which that can be very hit or miss.
Is not the best. Yeah.
No, it's not.
Yeah. And the thing is we're talking about that where with the fire teams and everything, they've now made it to where your bounties will say, like Crucible bounties, you need to do this in a fire team of 2 or more.
Yes.
And if you don't have the friends, you can't do those bounties, so you are
locked out of it.
SOL.
Cut off. Yeah, you're SOL. You're shit out of luck because unless you have a means to find friends, which they don't provide.
And friends that like Crucible.
Exactly.
I'm not, I will play Crucible, but I don't, as a rule, play it first. And I have to be in the right mood to play Crucible, so... Nightfalls, which we touched on briefly, there is a lot less incentive to play the Nightfalls. But that's alright, because it's much harder to even hit the light level to do them. Wait, what? So they've taken away the incentive that we had to actually do this content, but to make it better, they've made it harder to do the content. There's something broken there. In a game that has had as many content problems, as many people complaining about the amount of content available, they've made it harder to access content, not easier. Again, I keep coming back to it. Bungie is not learning its lessons of the past.
They're trying, but they're not getting there.
They keep...
Not yet.
The sad thing of it is they keep tripping over themselves.
Yeah, they're the ones hurting themselves.
Yes. There's a joke among older EverQuest players, which, like I said, hey, I'm one. Way back in vanilla EverQuest, at one point, John Smedley said, well, something other doesn't fit with the vision. And he said it with that inflection. Capital T, capital V. The vision.
The vision.
That's what's happening in Destiny. Well, it's not their vision. Well, it doesn't really matter what your vision is because we're the players and we're the ones who are going to buy or not buy the game if we enjoy it. Your vision really needs to take that into consideration.
Yeah.
And I think that they are rather rapidly burning through what they had from Halo. The public agency that people gave them for being the people who made Halo. They're burning through the currency that they generate from that game. And sooner or later, the players are going to come back and say, enough. It happened in EverQuest, and as a result, John Smedley stopped working there. Because it happened hard. So, we'll see what happens. And again, that's kind of your mileage may vary thing, but...
if I'm not mistaken, John Smedley is no longer working in any game. I think he left Daybreak.
I wouldn't know because I don't play EverQuest anymore. I finally retired for the last time a couple of years ago when Destiny came out.
For the last time.
Yeah. He was working for the Sony Online, blah, 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 the guys that did the...
Sony Online Entertainment.
Yeah. And they were bought out and with the thing Daybreak, and he's no longer there. He left.
Yeah, that...
because he was behind the DCUO, and, everybody complained about that one left and right. And,
sidetracking our own review,
yeah.
Destiny EverQuest has been on its last legs for several years, but I'm pretty sure we're going to be seeing the servers shut down before too much longer here. I know my old high-end rating guild is disbanded at this point because there's just nothing else to do, and the player base isn't there anymore.
A lot of the bigger MMOs have been taking a hit.
Yes. Let's talk about one that I'm dodging right now. This game has way too fucking many snipers. The Taken King made this problem substantially worse. There are now 4 sniper classes, and every single one of them has a very annoying mechanic, one way or the other.
Oh, not good. I'm down.
Where'd you go?
Just let me respawn. I'll re-grab the orb.
Okay.
Because I have, 6 captains on me.
Okay. Speaking of snipers, here's a couple right now. One thing they did right, folks, as you see me playing with it and Garth playing with it, they added swords.
I was going to say, you haven't brought that up yet.
Yeah, that's a good thing. That's a good thing. I love my sword.
This is new content, although I really meant to mention it during the gear changes, but they've added a sword, and there's always been a sword mechanic in the game. It was part of originally one specific mission, and then later it became the focus point of a raid. Swords are fun. They're also somewhat dangerous if you're not paying attention.
Yeah, if
'Cause
you get too overzealous,
yes, it's
things
easy
can
to
go quite
it's easy to
wrong
go.
quite quick.
It's easy to get overzealous because you do get into the swing of it, so to speak.
No pun intended. Pun
No
intended.
pun very intended.
Definitely intended.
Let's not kid ourselves. Yeah. We've talked about this a couple times. I have it here in my notes, so I'm going to bring it up one more time. The end game content is still too dependent on adding more enemies rather than more interesting mechanics. Hello, Golgoroth.
Yeah.
The end all be all bullet sponge.
Yeah, I can't contrast these two enough. There's Golgoroth, the bullet sponge, and then there's War Priest.
Now,
the two encounters cannot possibly be more different.
Now, you have to give them credit because he may be a giant bullet sponge, but it's a hell of a mechanic for that encounter as well. It does
think
take
it would
good
be.
gameplay.
I think it would be if there were about half as many ads.
The thrall could be cut back. If you cut it back even a quarter of the thrall, it would be a lot better.
I think
I do agree. I do agree on that with the ads.
I think at least a quarter of the thrall and at least half of the acolytes. Every single one of them carries AoE splash damage weapons. That's too many. That's too many.
Yeah, they don't have the normal shredders. They have the boomer cannons.
So, and that's really what my problem is. Meanwhile, like I said, you have the War Priest fight where there are still ads in this fight. There are not hideous numbers, and there's cover. And you have an interesting mechanic to use as you're doing that fight. Instead of just being one big ad fest like Golgoroth is, you actually get to do a little bit of thought as part of it. And that's where it gets substantially better. That's where Destiny really shines, is when they actually put a little bit of thought into their events rather than just the endless ad fest. Coins.
Running, hiding from my life.
I just tank it.
Ow!
Yeah, I'm tanking it. I'll turn on one. Another thing you could touch on with the strikes that we didn't talk about earlier, the Vanguard bonus now.
Yes, that's a good one. As you've seen, we're on our, third, fourth strike in a row, and one of the big changes with the new expansion is that as you do more strikes, you get a higher and higher chance of getting usable drops. We were talking with one friend earlier today who said he's been sitting in for 2-3 hours, and he's getting gear as high as what he would get from a raid, 300 plus.
Well, and they do also incorporate strike gear and weapons now, not just raid gear and weapons.
That's another good example. In year one, you got loot engrams, and sometimes you got loot outright, but you got these loot engrams that you have to turn in, and then it gets decoded randomly. In year two, the strikes now drop gear that is specific to that event. This one, do you know what this one drops off the top of your head?
This one, being the Vex, I am not sure because I haven't got anything from this one.
Okay. Well, on another one of the ones, the one we did earlier with the huge swarm of yellow enemies, you can get a particularly powerful hand cannon, for instance, and that is something that's new.
And that's the way you finish the new PlayStation exclusive before he goes into his little hidey hole.
Yeah, that was a pretty good stomping.
That's a quick run.
Yeah.
That's a good run.
It's a hell of a run. He didn't even go in there.
So, give them credit. They have done some interesting things here. They really have.
I like the
This
mechanic
one
in
is
that fight.
interesting. Yeah, this one's interesting.
I really like it because you have to work as a team. The one person has to carry the relic back and forth to activate it. You have to clear the ads and then DPS. And
Mm-hmm.
then same thing again. You have to get the relic, get it back to the other side. It's really good. And I like from the beginning to open up the next area, you have to use a relic. You can't just blow through the strike.
Right, exactly.
Now, on the other hand, you have Darkblade,
Oh boy.
which hopefully we get next because I just love speedrunning it.
Yeah, Darkblade you can definitely speedrun.
Yes.
While we're waiting for this next one to load, I want to get back to the end game content and adding more enemies rather than more interesting mechanics. Let's talk about the Court of Oryx. In Tier 1 of Court of Oryx, you get one boss and his ads.
Yep.
Tier 1 is your basic patrol level enemy. In Tier 2 of Court of Oryx, you get two bosses and their ads.
The actual rankings. Speaking of my strike, but Tier 1 is rated at a 190
Yes.
light level. Tier 2 is actually rated at a 240.
Mm-hmm. And there's that 240 problem again.
There's the 240, and then when you get to Tier 3, it is actually higher than Raid. Raid is 280. Tier 3 Court of Oryx is 300.
Now, right up until this week's weekly reset came on, I was going to complain that Tier 3 was actually worse because it was still two bosses, but there were even more ads that were even higher level. But they did something I wouldn't have given Bungie credit for. They are actually rotating out that Tier 3 strike every week. So,
and I did not expect to see the one they gave us this week, which was
yes,
a pleasant surprise.
This week was difficult, but it was much easier and definitely much more enjoyable than last week's.
Because we all knew this one.
To a degree.
I was going to say, to a point.
To a point. That is actually a good change. I still think they maybe could have done one better and just had the Tier 3 rotate each time you try. Just pick it random, just like the Tier 1 and 2.
That, I believe they are talking, could be a possibility to where it's going to be randomized, because once they get through like their normal playlist in a few weeks, then they will just make it random. Which I would absolutely enjoy.
That would be a welcome change because that would foster two things. First off, it would foster teamwork because now you actually learn the encounters and you get a chance. You have to adjust on the fly. That's interesting to me. But also because rather than facing the same fight that there's no way in hell you're going to beat it 1,000 times in a row, you get a chance for a easier strike, or if you prefer, you get a chance for a harder strike. So that week one fight, we were not going to clear. There's just no way. Week 2, we cleared it very, very, very easily once we understood the full mechanic. And
at the point we did it 3 straight times.
Yeah. And that's what happens.
Be honest here.
That's what happens with content. You know, some is easier, some is harder, but that takes away the difficulty gate. I don't have a problem with something being a little bit easier because that makes it more inclusive to players, not less. And again, Destiny is a game that has a problem with content. It has much less of a problem before Year 2 came out, but it still has a problem with content. Let's see here. Lockout, we already talked about this, so I'm going to skip forward. Millstone Ground. Grinding and grinding and grinding and grinding. We did touch on this earlier, but let me make a couple other quick points that I have noted down here. Number 1, here's new gear for you, player. don't bother leveling it up because you're going to get even more new gear next strike. That'll probably be better.
Yep.
This doesn't
Now,
happen once you hit max level, but oh man, when you're doing the initial leveling and the initial light leveling, holy crap, was I going through gear.
Yes. One thing with the grind, though, the mid-game content, they've kind of made it to where you're not just out in the open land. The best way to grind is the strikes, which are ever-changing every time you play it.
And it's fair. That's a fair point, but I think that's also always been the case. The strikes have always been the best place to grind because there's always been a higher chance of drops in the strikes. Plus, you got marks and such.
True, and now they've made it better with the addition of the bonus of completing multiple strikes in a row.
Yes.
If you want to talk about gear, let me come up there and you can take video of this. You're going to see this. The gun I'm currently got equipped is level 297. Now, this is a blue sidearm. It's 295, and it's blue.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's the thing.
And that's
because of the infusion, which we haven't went over.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That I have less of a problem with because they did address it, but at the same time, that's also kind of the problem that we were talking about with gear and with the light level being more confusing now rather than less. In year one, if I had a legendary, I knew I had the best gear available towards getting my light level up. It was either going to be a world drop, in which case I needed a raid drop to get better than that, or it was going to be a raid piece of gear. There was not this 50,000 shades of light level.
50 shades of light level.
And I do think they've made the leveling system a little bit more confusing rather than less, and that I get why they did, and yeah, it's nice to have a bit smoother level up process, but I'm still wondering why there are two separate level up processes. I would think that one standard is plenty.
All the multiplying scions go away.
Wow.
Whoa. The tower vendors are still selling, for the most part, better gear than what you get dropped in the world. Now, that isn't 100% true. When I wrote that note down, I was still collecting gear and working my way up towards 290.
Okay, I was wondering.
Vendor gear, which you buy in the tower, starts at 280 light level. That is better than the vast majority of what's going to drop in the world. Now, the trade-off is, like has been pointed out, even after that point, that's not the highest end. In fact, we've roughly guessed that the high-end gear, once the hard raid comes out, is going to be about 320. 320?
Yeah, because right now it's currently 310 with the raid gear.
Yeah.
And this is just standard raid for right now.
Right.
And that's the new thing with the raid. Your regular tier raid has its own set of gear. The hard raid is going to have its own set of gear. Will have a set of gear.
And because of the way that the gear drops at randomized light levels now, it also will have more gear, more light or less light, depending on the piece of gear. But the higher level stuff will have a better chance of dropping above 310. Still, when you stop and consider that stuff that drops in the tower, or is purchased in the tower, starts at 280, versus when you start leveling up, you're getting gear 190. That doesn't seem quite right. And the other thing is that the gear that is purchased in the tower tends to be more consistent. Generally, it's pretty good stats and pretty good bonuses, perks.
Coins.
Versus what you get out in the wild is a bit of a crapshoot because it's completely random. You have any thoughts on that? Thoughts to add?
Well, you gotta get legendary marks before you can buy the stuff in the tower.
Because,
True.
yeah, there's no more Vanguard marks and Crucible marks. It's all been put into the legendary marks.
True, but when you put together 3 characters that can gain their dailies, that's 90 marks a day in and of itself. Plus,
Yeah.
that's just the two basic easy ones to get.
With the drops, though, in the world, I have noticed that the higher your gear is, you're generally getting stuff within, I'd say, 4 or 5 light above or below.
And that
when you're
was...
getting your Engrams, for the most part.
See, now,
And
I saw that and I agreed right up until about the time I hit 280. Once you hit 280, you start seeing a lot of gear that's closer to 260, 270, and it
yeah,
seems
the
like it just drops that.
264s, the
Yeah,
270s.
it just seems like it drops that 90% of the time. You do get higher stuff every so often, but not as often as I think it really should, if that's going to be the weighted average. I mean, if in general, up until 280, you're getting stuff that is almost always higher than what you're currently equipping, I think then you should at least get stuff that's in the 285s consistently.
Yeah.
Very consistently. I understand not doing 290s every drop, but
Yeah,
at least
exactly.
give me 285s. Because at this point, I'm wearing gear that's better, and I can at least use that for my other characters. I've already proven that I can get that gear.
Yeah.
Well, he's
Charge.
I'll say helmets off, he'll be charging.
Oops, shouldn't have done that. I'm going to turn the mic over to you guys for Crucible. Because I have not spent much time in the Crucible.
Oh, there's so much to say about Crucible. They were trying to fix the meta. In a way, it did. Freaking helmet, by the way. I
I'm
swear,
gonna stop using the ones I haven't gotten any in the last.
yeah, I can't get a primary to save my life. Crucible, the new game modes, Rift, amazing. Mayhem, amazing. Zone control that they just introduced this week, pretty good. I like the mechanics of it. Going with Mayhem, we seen that the week before, where they were letting everyone have a taste of it. It's just all out chaos. Very fun mode to play. If you're one of the guys that doesn't have a team you can go in with for, say, Control or Trials or anything like that, and you just want to go in and have fun, go play Mayhem. You don't have to have a team. You're going to have fun regardless.
Yes, it's Destiny, the superhero edition.
Yes, you're getting supers like every 30 seconds. It's just complete, like the title says, mayhem. Coming into Rift, amazing if you have a good team. You have to work together. You're taking a spark, and when it charges, one person gathers it, the rest of the team pretty much escorts them, protecting them until they can deposit that into the opponent's rift. And it's pretty much a game of rugby or football, either way you would like to go about that. Very good. It is very team oriented. Harder to play if you're in by yourself or even in a group of 2 or 3. The bigger your team, the better you're going to do. Zone control. Zone control is traditional control where you're capturing your A, B, and C points. Except for now, kills do not matter. It is not based on controlling a point and getting kills to raise your score. It is strictly controlling points and earning points from how many zones you control. Every few seconds, if you have one zone, you get 10 points. If you have 2 zones, 20. 3, you get 30 points. And you do have to have the ability to get the kills, but it's more about the teamwork of getting to the zones, holding your zone, and it's not based upon, yeah, you're a good slayer, you're out getting all the kills. Your team can win and have less kills just for the fact that you're running around grabbing all of the zones. You just keep rotating and you're good to go. As far as the weapon-wise now, they were supposed to be nerfing weapons such as hand cannons. I still am seeing a lot of thorns, which are still a pain in the ass.
I'm just gonna pause you here, there, Jay. So the
Okay.
Thorn, for those of you who are not familiar with the game, Thorn is one of the exotic weapons we touched on briefly, and it's a year 1 bounty, or it's a year 1 weapon, which means it maxes out at 170 light. However, the Thorn is basically an annoyance weapon for Crucible. Everyone that had it did well just by default, because it's that kind of weapon. Now, what was supposed to happen, what happened in the rest of the game in PvE, is that year 1 weapons are effectively useless. There are some weapons that are still somewhat useful, even at higher light levels, if you're willing to give up the light level of a new weapon. For instance, Fatebringer, which is another hand cannon from year 1. But for the vast majority of weapons, they are now useless. There's no point whatsoever to equipping them because of the difference in the years. Thorn was a weapon that every single person who ever played Crucible complained about because it applies a high damage dot and does high damage just by nature of the fact that it's a hand cannon and it's basically a handheld sniper rifle.
Yes, that was the issue, was the range. For one, it is an amazing weapon with the abilities and everything like that, which I can see not nerfing the ability because that is what the gun is. That is its perks. That is what makes it the Thorn.
And they did change the abilities too.
Yeah, they actually buffed it.
They ended up buffing it.
Yeah, they ended up buffing the stack on the poison, which I'm fine with because they were supposed to take away the range. I can still be across a map and get 2-shotted by a Thorn, and it's ridiculous. Because in PvP, it doesn't matter if it's a year 1 weapon or year 2 weapon, they are all equal because there is no level advantage unless you're playing in Iron Banner or in Trials of Osiris. That's the only time that year 1 weapons will be ineffective. Right now, they are still very effective. So if you have a favorite weapon from year one and you're a Crucible player, if you've got a Hopscotch Pilgrim, use it. If you have a Thorn,
Yes.
use it. If you have Fell Winners, your shotgun, use it.
Use it.
Yes.
And all these weapons are weapons from year one that owned, for lack of a better term, in year one, and they still do. And
they were the OP. They were the OP being overpowered weapons, and they still are. They were talking about blinking. I mean, about nerfing the blink shotgun. You
which
can go
is
into any the warlock class and
Hunter,
hunters have an ability to blink.
which is just a short-range teleport.
Yep. And what the people would do, it's supposed to be a defensive ability. Everyone exploited it as an offensive ability by teleporting and coming straight up to you and shotgunning. They were supposedly nerfing this to where it took longer to ready the weapon after the blink, and you could only blink twice. But people have found that when you blink, if you are on your second and you switch weapons mid-blink, you still get a third, and you are ready to shoot right off of the bat.
Yep.
So blink shotgun is still a thing, and if you know how to do it, do it. It works very well.
And, part of that, leave that to the ingenuity of players who will, if there's any way, shape, or form your game can be broken, people will find their way and do it. It's not that they want to cheat, it's just that they want that advantage, and they will use it. Never, ever underestimate the player ability to break your game in ways that you never even began to consider.
It's not human nature, it's gamer nature. We are going to find any exploit we can in your game, no matter what it is.
And more than likely make use of it, yeah.
Okay, well, here we go. Speaking of exploits, every time you scream keys, you can speak about the exploit with the Gate Lord using the 3 of keys.
Oh, the 3 of coin?
Yeah, 3 of Lord.
Yeah, that exploit has been patched now, which I do like what they did on that. They're making you you were able to use a 3 of coins, and it gives you the ability.
What a 3 coins does is it raises the chance of a exotic weapon drop, or exotic orb drop, not a weapon, an exotic orb, which is a chance of any gear piece, really.
In my case, it's never a weapon; it's always gear, but that's another story for another time.
That's sour grapes from JDeems right there.
No, not at all. Bungie hates me. Week 1, they give me 12 weapons. After that, I've got nothing but armor. But no, it's an exploit to where you could
That's supposed to be your brother attacking me.
Do like a mission with the Ultra, like the Gate Lord, to where you are able to defeat him, go straight to orbit, go right back in, and you're at a saved checkpoint to where you can use another 3 of coins.
And kill the Gate Lord again.
Kill the Gate Lord immediately. And you can cycle this. It's like a 30-second rotation to where you could be able to do that. Now, you can still do that if you want with a smaller percentage chance of getting an exotic. Because what they have done is they nerfed it with a slight timer on it. Where everyone in the community's been trying to figure it out. It's roughly about a 7 to 10 minute timer in between uses, because they're preferring the players to use it in the strikes. And if you're a good team, you can get through a strike in about 10 minutes, beat to the boss.
Depending on the strike.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Depending on the strike, 7-10 minutes, maybe a little longer. And that's when you're using your next coin, so they're not taking away that that debuff, they're leaving it the normal chance of you getting the exotic drop. So that exploit of doing the Gate Lord and couple others have been dropped, and
Ow.
I mean, I could see him doing it. Yeah, he stepped on you.
Man, I ran right into it too.
Oh, I'm trapped. I'm trapped.
I'm working on it. I'm working on it.
Oh, where's those orbs? I need them.
They're over here.
Okay.
I got all
Is there
those
any
idiots
heavy
on
ammo
me.
anywhere?
No.
Or they gave us
Special. And I bought them because I'm using my sidearm. I like it.
Oh,
The sidearms, I will give them credit. They have made them really nice in the new expansion, upgrade, the new whatever you want to consider it.
No, yeah,
It's
here
like-
he comes.
The sidearms are actual viable options now.
Mm-hmm. No shit.
I'm going down. Don't mind me, I'm just jumping around, guys.
Go right ahead.
I need help.
Holy hell.
Too many mans, kill the mans.
God. You brought up a point earlier, Jay, that I wanted to come back to, and that is the fact that in Destiny, this is one thing that, again, drives me nuts. In Destiny, your weapon damage and armor is averaged. What I mean by that is, as a level 1, I can attack an enemy that is level 1 and do X amount of damage. At level 2, I can attack that same enemy and do X plus 3. Level 3, X plus 6. At level 4, I do X plus 6. And 5, and 6, and 7, and 8, and so on.
And so forth, yeah.
The game averages out your damage, and it caps it so that at a certain point, you stop doing more damage. And it also does the same thing to your armor. You always take a minimum amount of damage from the lowest level enemy. A level 1 gold enemy can kill you almost as fast as a level 40 raid gold.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I've noticed that going through, say, if you're cutting on Cosmodrome, and you want to cut through from spawn and go to the divide, that room that has the level 1s that spawn in. There's like 8 of them. If you're not paying attention, they can kill. I can currently have 297 life. They can kill me in a matter of like 5 seconds if I'm not paying attention. And they're a level 1. They're not a level 40. They're a level 1.
And Destiny has done this from day one, and that, again, this is difficulty. This is a difficulty gate, but in this case, it's actually worse to me, because at level 40, I should be able to sneeze at these enemies and see them drop.
Yeah, at level 1, we should walk by them and they should just fall over dead.
And that's not to, that's not to say that's not to say they're not easy to kill. Okay?
No,
they are trivial to kill. Even level enemies, one-on-one, the regular enemies are pretty trivial to kill, because by that point you have consummate weapons of the same level. You know what you're shooting at. They are pretty trivial to kill. It's just that you get them in waves of dozens. But in no way, shape, or form should any level 1 enemy be able to so much as blink at me at level 40. And this is just right back in with this is just Destiny and Bungie again misreading the room. The fact that they are actually making it so that those enemies are still able to attack and still able to be dangerous, they're just trying to stretch out a lack of content. Because they know we don't have a choice but to be in there and
exactly
dealing with this crap. And this is where a lot of people's problems, I think, have come from with the game and not having enough content. It's not just because there's not enough content, it's because they're forced to redo the same crap over and over and over. And there's just no end to it.
Like right
And
now,
fights,
this is the Taken version. I mean, the
Fallen
version. And to make it hard, you just get enormous amounts of ads.
And let's talk about the Nightfall. Hey, if it's not just enormous amounts of ads, it's enormous amounts of ads that are yellow or gold bar, which means a gold bar enemy compared to, see, right now this captain is a red bar enemy. And it has a shield, but it's a red bar enemy.
The gold ones will come up here. These gold ones should come out right
here.
Yes.
The difference between a red bar and a gold bar is about 3 times the amount of health and 4 times the amount of armor. And it's not just that Destiny screws with you on your weapon damage and your enemy tank ability in that, just walking around. As a fire team of 3, enemies get about twice to 3 times as much health as they do as a level 1 enemy with only 1 person in your strike team. They artificially increase the damage and health of enemies,
depending on the number of players more difficult in the party.
Yeah. There are times when it's actually easier to solo a Nightfall than it is to try to do it with another player because of how much of a boost the enemy gets. And, again, I get to a degree what they're doing, but the ratio of change is a little ridiculous, I think.
More boots.
Dude, I would
but at least they're sublimes.
Yes, I was getting ready to say that. I just noticed they're not legendary, so I got exclusive.
Yeah, you might want to explain what the sublimes are.
Yep.
PlayStation exclusive armor is now dropped in a sublime Ingram.
And all that means is that during year 2, only players on the PlayStation are able to get those pieces of gear. This is something they did last year too. The Hawk Moon, for instance, is a exotic hand cannon that was only available for players on the PlayStation systems. And this content exclusivity, I think really does screw over the Microsoft players. I have nothing wrong with Microsoft. I don't happen to have an Xbox One right now. So what? I'm paying the same amount. They're paying the exact same amount, and they're getting less content. Again, Destiny has a content problem.
I'm opposite on that fact because I've always been a COD player, and I was always salty because Microsoft always got every freaking DLC months before we could.
Yep, and the problem there is not that Microsoft or Sony happened to get it sooner. The problem is that one or the other gets it sooner, period.
Yeah.
That is in no way, shape, or form right. They're charging the same amount.
It's all about the money. Yeah, it's all about the money. And Microsoft or Sony, whichever one is willing to pay for that the exclusive rights. Where did that come from?
The sniper that
What
I
was
just
the
took
chip
out.
man?
He's right behind you. He
Yeah.
just punched you. Yellow.
And this is kind of what we were
Well, I
talking
just
about.
ran right by my ghost, so.
Didn't I already read you?
Nope. He
I thought
just
you
walked
did.
right on by.
I'm
No.
sorry, I could have sworn
That
that
guy
I
just
had.
He just freaking walked right on by. My ghost is right there in the corner.
He's like, oh, it's this Garth.
Uh-huh. See if I
Sorry.
raise your ass.
How often do I die, though?
Oh.
Enough.
This is true.
Yeah, we all do.
Yeah. I guess what I'm getting at is, yeah, it's all about the money, but
In all reality, it is unfair.
Yeah.
I mean, all players, whether it be Xbox, PlayStation, whenever they do decide to put the game onto PC,
Yeah.
everyone should have the right to have the game at the same, well, shouldn't say the game, all the benefits of the game
content.
at the
The
same
content.
time. Yes, all content. But I do understand the reasonings behind it being you have to make money.
Right.
And what better way to do it than with, well, we'll give your console this if you buy the rights.
And I get what you're saying, but I think that's a wrong way to think. I think it shouldn't have been allowed in the first place. I really don't. I think it should never have been allowed in the first place because the more that we allow that, it's the exact same problem as prepaying for games before they're even out. Look at how many bugs were in Batman Arkham Knight in the PC version.
Yeah.
And that was purely based on the amount of money they got just off of pre-orders. They rushed the game out.
The Nexus mine must have been a vital resource. The very appearance of the restorative mine means we have the Vex off balance.
It's all clear, guys.
Press the advantage, Guardian.
And what's your feeling on, do you think it is a good, well, not really good thing, that it's going to be something we're going to be seeing with microtransactions?
I think that we will be seeing microtransactions soon.
I as well with the new emotes that they've implemented into year 2. I'm looking. If they do the microtransactions, please keep it cosmetic.
Yeah.
Do not do weapons or armor. You will break your own game.
I wouldn't mind. Again, I came from a request. They had a cash shop for years. I wouldn't mind things like experience potions, resurrection potions, bonus marks, not stuff, not just buying the marks outright, but maybe doubling the amount of marks you get for a certain task.
Okay, yeah,
that I wouldn't mind.
Yeah.
Yes, that I wouldn't mind. But yes,
yeah.
Unless they're going to, unless that purchased weapon or gear is going to be maybe unlock a quest, a very, very difficult quest. But even then, I question it. Even then, that gets really questionable, I think, because then you are buying gear. Yeah, that gets really hard to say.
It's a fine line. It's a fine line to
yes.
on. Yeah.
One thing that I think the EQ Cash Shop did a really good job on was appearance changes, and that's, let's bring that up briefly because, we were talking about gear and talking about how the stuff you get in the tower tends to be better up to a certain point. Well, a big part of that problem is because there's no way to transfer stats onto an appearance that you like.
Exactly.
I would rather have a certain look than... There's a piece of armor. Guess what? We don't give a damn how it looks on you.
Yeah.
And right now they don't, not in any way, shape, or form. And there's this amusing idea that I'm going to pick my armor based on what it looks like. Hell no. I'm buying it off of what improves my character the most.
Yeah. Sniper up top.
Coins.
It's a hobby gobby.
Yes, coins.
Mine's on.
I'm hiding behind the wall.
Here he comes.
Goddamn squid.
It's Squidward, kill him.
All right.
I don't have the SpongeBob laugh on my phone, so I won't do it.
Do you have a super, Alan?
Yeah, actually I do.
Let's melt him.
Melting time. 3, 2, 1. When you get down here.
Oh no, just run down here with me.
Okay. Ah, shit, he's got Medusa gaze on me. Hang on. 3, 2, 1. Goodbye. Ah, shit. There's it.
Gotcha.
Just as he died, hopefully. Oh, I got the burnt marshmallow. And hey, guess what? I finally got my exotic.
If you tell me the
I still haven't gotten an
exotic right now.
No, it's Gauntlet. But I did get the burnt marshmallow shader.
Cool. I haven't got that to drop yet. Yeah. And that is a strike drop only, I believe.
All right. So, do you two have any final thoughts here?
Lots of pluses, few negatives overall. I think it's good.
At least year 2's story was a whole hell of a lot better than year 1's.
And it's only looking like it's going to be better from now on.
Year 2 was actually worth a damn to play. Year 1, you're like, what the hell am I going here for? Why do I have to do this?
Yeah, it had meaning. It had purpose. What it should have had from the beginning.
Yeah, they've moved a lot of lore into the game. Whereas in year 1, you had to go to a site external to the game to get your lore. And even then, that lore wasn't really all that connected with what you were doing. So that is an improvement. For myself, I think, again, there has been an improvement here. There are things that they're doing right. The story is better. They have characterization in their characters. I think that they have a long way to go, and I think that I am very concerned with what I'm seeing right now as it bodes for year 3. Now, that's a long ways in the future. We've got two mini expansion packs between now and then. But I am concerned with year 3 and what they're going to do to us if what they did to us in year 2 was say, well, here we're going to completely replace your level system and we're going to force you to get completely new gear all over again, and we're going to completely disregard anything and everything you did before and make you do it again just to get the quests done for it.
Mm-hmm.
There has been an improvement here. Don't get me wrong. I still play this game because, you know what? For all of its problems, and this has been true from year 1, for all of its problems, it is still the best controlling shooter on the market. It's the best controlling shooter I have ever played. But I think that they need to learn from the mistakes of the past. They have been taught certain lessons more than once. where they've gone back and they've had to have changes just due to the player outrage, but they keep making the same mistakes.
Yeah.
I'm re-leveling my exotic gear again. I am going through the story again. I am getting all new weapons again because they've been obsoleted out, and that is understanding to a degree, but not to the degree that we've had to in year 2. We'll see what happens. It's worth playing. It's worth picking up, I think, because it's a very well-playing game. But there is a danger here, and there are problems that the game and Bungie have to address. And there are certain things that Bungie is doing that I think they just plain need to stop doing.
It would be for the better if they did.
Anyway, though, like I say, hey, it's a good game, and it is worth picking up for the play style alone, I think. If you like playing with people, if you like interesting gameplay, pretty good story this year, and there's a lot of stuff to do, even though it still has that content problem. There is stuff for people to do. And this year especially, they've done a really good job of expanding. They don't just let it end at the end of the story missions that they added. Or the apparent end, I should say. So it's worth looking at. Folks, this has been JC, JDeems and Garth for Dragons Anime Video Reviews. Thanks for joining us, and you have a great day.
Now the fun begins.
And out.
Yeah.
You get to edit all that. Have fun.
Edit hell. That's going in straight from the stream.
That's a straight cut. Yeah, that's a straight cut, man. There's no editing that. What are you talking about?
Well, let's see here.
I'm a little behind. I'll try to get bottom.
I'm not going to comment on that one.
Yeah.
Behind, gotta get bottom, huh? Oh.
Yeah, that was pretty bad, dude.
I'm glad that's not got to be on the thing. No outtakes either, damn it.
Oh, God. There's going to be all kinds of outtakes.